Everyone, this is Yusuf from Crafting Clouds, and in today's video, we're going to be doing a deep dive into Methods Access and understanding how to use Methods Access to get the results you need when it comes to setting up your users for your Method account and other considerations. So let's begin. Right now, as you can see, I'm on my dashboard. I'm in my demo account. And in order for me to go ahead and access my users to either modify their permissions or to invite a new user, I would go into my profile icon right here, click Account Settings, and then hit this little Users option right here. Now, one thing I want to call out is if you're not an admin user in Method, you will not see this option. So you have to make sure that you're an admin user. When you go into the users area, you're going to see a list of all the active users that you have in your account. For me, it's just myself. You'll also see method support. This is going to be in all of your accounts. Method support is something that comes already with the account because this is a way for the support team to log into your account and be able to troubleshoot any issues that you report to them. But in here, if I click open my user profile, you're going to see that it's separated into 3 tabs when it comes to my permissions. So my user profile, where it shows my username, which I could change, my sign-in email, and then my QuickBooks employee. So this is important to set up because you want to be able to have Method automatically associate any transactions that you assign to it from within Method to the correct sales reps or employees that you have set up in your QuickBooks file. So you want that automatically taken care for you. You don't want to have to be able to worry about that afterwards. So it's important that you set up your QuickBooks employee. For those of you that use work orders, when it comes to your timesheets, this is also very important because when you go over and you sync your timesheets to QuickBooks, it expects an employee associated to the timesheet. So if you, the user in Method, is logging time and this isn't set up, it's not going to sync over to your QuickBooks because it doesn't see an employee tied to the time tracking sheet. Going to access permissions. So the access in Method is comprised of 3 areas. You have permission level, and let me just zoom in a little bit here. You have permission level, you have application permissions, and you have record access. So starting from the top, permission level, this is basically assigning a role to the user that you would like to invite. Okay, so let's just talk about this a little bit more in terms of the context of you creating a new user for your team. So you have the admin user, the customizer, the regular user. So for the admin user, you're basically giving the user that you're inviting, if you were to assign him or her this role, the ability to go in and access everything in the platform, whether it's admin-only tools such as the import-export tool, tables and fields. Actually, tables and fields is also meant for customizers as well. So really, it's the import-export tool and stuff like that. Users, so being able to go in and see your users like what we just saw right now, and being able to update your subscription. These are things that should only be provided to someone who's assigned the admin role. Now, for someone who doesn't need to see user access or manage user access or the subscription, then you want to give them the customizer role if you still want them to be able to go into Method and customize apps and change the look and feel of certain areas in the platform. Then you want to assign them the customizer role. Now, if you don't even want them to customize the look and feel of the apps and be able to manage any of the customizations in the platform, then you want to give them the regular role. This basically removes access to them not seeing any of the tables and fields, the import-export tool, any of those admin tools that you see in your account settings that we saw earlier. You also don't want them to be able to manage the user access or update the subscription. And you don't also want them to customize a Method. You just want them to be able to reap the benefits of Method and utilize what's been given to them. You want to give them the regular role. Now, in the 10 years that I've been using this platform and working with clients, majority of the clients that I work with, it's either an admin or a regular role that they're assigning to all of their users. I very rarely see this customizer role being assigned. So the admins are, you could have, I've seen admins, there's been up to 5 to 10 admins per account, depending on how many users you have. and the remaining are all just regular users. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is the same as existing user option. So this is just an easy way for you to create a new user by copying the access permissions and settings that you've applied to that user profile to a new user that you're inviting, that you're creating. So that's will speed up the process in terms of inviting users. Now, there's many ways to invite a user. I mean, this is one right here, right? So you can select a user. Or sorry, no, this is not one. This is a way that you can invite a user. So if we go back to account settings and we go users and we click invite, this is a way that you would invite a user. And this is probably the most common way you'd want to do it, to be quite honest with you. So as you can see, these are the roles we discussed about. So you choose the role. Then you'd add in the emails. So you might want to create a bunch of users at once, right? You don't want to have to go through it every single time. So Method allows you to do that. So you type in all the emails for all their users that are assigned to this role. So I chose admin. Let's go ahead and let's just choose regular here. Okay, so I'm going to choose regular and let's click next. All right. And we're going to go in and we're going to add a bunch of users by adding their emails in here. Now, one thing I want to call out is when you're adding in these emails, you want to make sure that you end your email in a comma. And that will resolve into this little bubble, which separates out your emails, okay? But this basically allows you to create as many emails as you'd like in a comma delimited format. If we click next, you'll see at the top it says select permissions. So you can go ahead and you can assign for all of the apps that you're going to assign to this user what permissions you want them to have. Do you want them to have edit permissions? If not, then you just remove edit. Do you want them to be able to delete any of the records, not the apps, any of the records in the apps? If so, you want to keep this delete on. If not, you would remove the delete option as well. So this way, now they're only able to view. But for right now, most likely you want them to be able to edit as well as delete. Now, below, I'm not going to go through each one of these in detail, but I just want to give you a high-level understanding of how Method's applications are structured. So Method offers their apps in something called packs. Each one of these tiles that you see here that I'm clicking are packs, and each pack comes with its own price per user per month. So as you can see, when I choose the contact management app, which is the default standard app that you must actually pay for in order for you to subscribe to Method, you cannot uncheck yourself from this app. The minimum is $28 per user per month because this is the foundation of the platform. You see it offers activities, contacts, send email. For the case manager, it only has one app, which is cases, and the same for email campaigns, only one app for email campaigns. Now, if we scroll down to sales tools, you'll see there's many more packs or packages available here. So I can go ahead and I can subscribe these two users to the sales transaction pack, and which will be $12 per user per month. And it contains all of these apps that you see below. Okay. And basically you can go ahead and you can set up your access like such. Now, one thing I want to call out is you're going to see this custom tools. This custom tools may not show up for you if you do not have a custom app in Method. If you have created a custom app in Method, it will show up here, and it's always going to be free because it's the app that you customize, you built yourself. Now, if you customize out of an existing app, that doesn't mean that it makes that app free now. No, you still have to pay for that app because you're customizing off of an out-of-the-box app. But if you're creating an app from scratch, yes, that is something that's completely free to you. So if we click next, it tells you exactly who you're inviting. So it gives you an overview. It shows you exactly what you've selected for access to what apps. And then it also tells you the price. Okay. So this is something that you can review before you send out the invite. Right now, I'm not going to send out the invite because I don't need to do that. I'm just doing this for demonstration purposes. But there is one thing I want to call out. So we did choose regular. Okay. But I want you to notice something. Notice how the view, customize, manage, create, and approve checkboxes, all this was disabled. Why is that? These permissions here are only meant for the customizer and the admin roles. So if I go back and now instead of saying I want to choose a regular user, I want to do a customizer user, notice how the permissions change. Now we no longer have access to the edit and delete. You're automatically going to have the edit delete permissions because you're able to customize in Method, which means you're going to have also ability to edit records and delete records. It's just implied when you're a customizer. But then you also have the option you can remove the customizer and only give them access to manage apps, and I'll show you what that means in a sec. Or you can have access to both customize and manage, or just customize. Now, customize, straightforward, is just being able to go into Method and customize a particular area in Method for what you want. Manage might be a little bit confusing for you, so let me show you briefly what that means. If we go into our dashboard, you have all of our app tiles here with the ellipses icon. When you click the ellipses icon, you'll always see this manage option below for all of your apps, okay? So if I go ahead and I click manage for this invoices app, you have access now to the settings for the app. So you have the screens. So every app is comprised of screens. So just to high level map out the architecture of Method from the very top to the very bottom, you have your packages or your packs. Within each package is your apps, and within each apps are your screens. So right here, you see all of your screens that you've created or copied. You'll notice already I've done some customizations. As you can see, this new edit invoice screen has been redirected to new edit invoice 3. These are all areas that this is something that a regular user would not have access to. So if I go in here and I want to remove this redirect to my custom screen back to the stock screen, I can go and click remove the redirect. And now it's not going to look at that custom screen anymore. It's going to redirect all users to the out-of-the-box stock screen. This is a privilege or a permission that you've been granted as the customizer through that manage checkbox, okay? You also have access to the app routines. So if you're not familiar with app routines, at a high level, it's basically a very powerful automation tool that you can schedule either daily, weekly, or whatnot for your app. And then you have the permissions. So you're going to see a list of all of your users that have been subscribed to this app, and you're going to be able to manage what they should or should not be able to do within this app. So they could also have access to manage settings just like you, or should they be able to delete invoices since we're in the invoices app? No. You can remove that if that's the case. Should they be able to edit invoices, and should they be able to access the app altogether? Now, if you remove their access from here, you're also removing their access for the user, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're reducing their subscription, because this is a part of a pack, which is the sales transaction pack, which also contains your estimates and other transactions. So they may have access to those other transactions. So their subscription is not going to go down just because you remove them from one app within the pack. Okay. So that is just a brief overview of what that manage permission meant. Okay. Now, if we go back and we invite a user and we choose admin briefly, just to show you what that is like. All right. You see you have access to both edit, delete, customize, manage. So you might want them to only customize and manage apps, but you don't want them to edit or delete in any of the records. So that is something else that you should be aware of in terms of the little nuances between each of the roles and what you should be looking for. Okay. So that's essentially it. Now, again, the subscription model, just to finalize with you to understand, just because you're removing access to a particular app within a package doesn't mean you're removing them access to the overall pack, which is the where the fee comes from, right? So if I don't want my guys to have access to purchase orders, for example, on this purchase app, but I want them to have access to bills, they're still going to pay that $12 per user per month. But if I don't want them to have access to bills or purchase orders, then I can uncheck this package, and that will remove and reduce their subscription fee. Okay, so moving along, if we go back now and we briefly already touched on the application permissions, but I'll go into it a little bit here. So this is the application access now, right? So over here, you're able to expand each one of these packs and assign a pack to your user. So maybe you want your user to not have access to case management. You'll see here, everything is checked off for me because I'm in my demo account. And as a Method partner, I'm actually given access to all this for free. But for you, you wouldn't have all this checked off. So you would actually have to go into each one of these packs one by one and check off which packs you want them to have access to. But then on top of that, when you go and you check off a pack, right, you want to also check off what apps within the pack you want them to have access to. So maybe you don't want them to have access to all of these apps within the sales transactions pack. Maybe you're providing access to someone who does strictly quoting in your business. You're going to want to remove access to invoices, payments, sales orders, and sales receipts, and only give them access to estimates. They're still going to pay that $12 per month. But because they subscribe to the pack, and because they need to use one app within this pack, okay? But this is how you control access. Now, maybe you want this quoter to not delete quotes and only edit quotes. This is how you can further fine-tune their access within an app from a pack that they're subscribed to, okay? So that is the access permissions for the apps that are offered out of Method. Now, in terms of understanding what's free and what's not, I'm not going to go into in great detail, but there are some apps that are given to you for free and some that are not. The most notable ones that are for free are the work orders and field crew apps. So if you are a field crew, if you do use field services and you are a field service business, you do get work orders and field crew for free. Now, going into records access is where it gets a little bit confusing, but I'm hoping that I can make this as crystal clear for you as possible. For records access, this is being able to provide access to only the records that user needs to see. So maybe that user doesn't need to see everyone's records. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to make sure, by default, this is going to be checked. Access all peer records on grids will be checked. So that means it's going to show you everything for all of your users. They're going to be able to see across all of their users' records and see all the records that they're assigned to, right? But maybe you don't want that. Maybe you only want to see their own. You're going to uncheck this, and you're going to add exactly who you want to have them see. Maybe you don't want them to have them see anyone else's, just their own. Then you're not even going to have anything added in this peer-to-peer access. You're just going to leave it empty. And that means they're only going to see their own records. But maybe you're providing access for a supervisor and they manage a team of 3. You're going to want to add those 3 people in this peer section right here. That's it. Okay. Now, going down, you also have access empty records. This is important because, and this is implied, when you check the access all peer records on grids, you're by default going to have access to all the empty records. But what that necessarily means is records in Method are, if you're a QBO account, you're going to be using an assign to dropdown. Okay. So what I mean by here is if I go into one of my transactions, you'll notice there's an assign to dropdown here, which is referencing all my users, right? If this is blank, which I can leave blank right now, okay? It's now a blank, it's an invoice. Oh, this is actually defaulting to me. I think I have an automation here. But sometimes, I mean, not sometimes, you can leave this blank. And if you leave this blank, right, and you save this record and it stays blank, I think I just have an automation set up for this. That's why it's not for me. But essentially what that means is now you have an empty record, but you don't want those records to get lost, right? You still want to be able to have access to those empty records so that you can go ahead and assign those records to the particular reps that it belongs to. That way, when you go back to this permission here, right, you want to be able to make sure that you have this option checked on. That's only if this option is checked off and you don't want them to have access to see everything. Then you want to make sure this is checked on if you want them to see empty records. If you don't want them to see empty records, and that should only be available to a certain set of admin users, for example, then you would just turn this off. Okay. Now, one thing I must emphasize and highlight, and this is going to conclude my video today, but I want to end this off, and it's very important, and it was quite confusing. It was confusing for me too when I first started at Method, is if you uncheck this option off for even one of your users, you have to uncheck this off now for all of your users in order for it to work. And you might be wondering right now, well, then what's the point of even having this option? That's a good question. If you don't check off this for all of your users, it's not going to work. And if you want users to have access, like your admin users to have access to everyone's records, you're still going to have to go to their profile and uncheck this off for them. But then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to add everyone, all of the users here, and click Save All Changes. And all of the users will now show up here. This is essentially the equivalent. And you're going to want to check this off and hit Save. This is essentially the equivalent of you checking off this Access All Peer Records on Grids option for the admin users. You're doing the exact same thing, but instead you're just doing it differently. And the reason why this must be off, again, is because you're going to have users on your team that you do not want to have access to all of the records and Method. If that's the case, when you check off this option for them, you must check it off for everyone, all of your users in the account, which means that for all of your admin users, you're going to have to check this off, and you're going to have to go in and add back all of your users through here, and also make sure that the Access Empty Records option is checked and click Save All. All right. So that is a little bit, I know that's a little confusing, but that is just how the platform works. If you just keep this off for one of your users and everyone else's is on, that one user that you expect to not see records for, they're still going to see those records because not everyone else has this option off. Okay. Now, this is something that does have a setup cost to it, but it's only a one-time thing. So if you're setting this up, this is more of like a set and forget. Now, one thing you do want to also remember, though, is that in the future, when you're inviting new users, you do want to remember to go back to your admin profiles and make sure you're adding those new users as peers in the peer-to-peer access session as well, or else your admins are not going to see those new users. They're not going to see those new users' records. Also, this does have a direct impact into areas like the work orders calendar. So if I were to go into the work orders app, okay, and we go into the calendar area, okay, you're going to see this resources drop down. You're going to see right now, okay, so I see myself. This drop down, you will not see users that you want to add to the scheduling for your work orders if you don't have access to them in that one area. So you got to make sure you have access to them there. And that concludes the end of my video. I hope this helps you understand how Method's Access works and how to set up your users correctly and what roles to consider and how granular you can get with just Access on an app level, as well as how much control you can have in terms of records access and the little nuances that you have to understand in Method where if you want to prevent one user to not see someone else's records, you must toggle off that option for all of your users across Method and make sure you set up each one of your users now to have the intended access that they need to have in order for it to work across the platform. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a question down below. I'll do my best to try to answer as soon as possible. Otherwise, I hope this video delivered value for you guys. If you want to get on a call and you want to discuss your access, and I can provide a free access audit to make sure you're not overpaying for your Method account, I'm more than happy to do that. I have my website link as well as my email down below. Feel free to reach out. Otherwise, if you enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate a like and subscribe. It really helps push my videos out to the fellow Method community so that they're more educated and they can do more with the platform. All right, guys, I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.